Sorry, can't hear you. I think it's on mute.
Sorry. Thank you, Rajeev bhai. Uh, so, Namaste Badane. Bear with me 1 second. Sorry, Rajeev bhai, you can hear me now properly? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
All right. So, Namaste Badane and Jai Jinendra, and sorry for the little technical hiccup there. Today's session is on the Nav Tattva, and it's going to be led by Rajeev bhai, who has very good knowledge on this. Please, Rajeev bhai, if you can introduce yourself a little bit and tell us a bit more about what we are going to talk.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so Jai Jindra, everyone. Good evening. So last week we were discussing the Nav Tattva, the categories of truth as per the Jain philosophy. So this will be essentially be a continuation of the talk we had last week. So let me just share my screen. Right. So as you can see, last week we were talking about the 9 tattva, and these are the 9 fundamental truths with the Jains believe in. And we discussed last week, we started with it ashrav. Ashrav, very simply put, is the influx of karma. So we shall just carry on to look at the next one. So the next one is samvar, and it's exact opposite of ashrav. So which means the stoppage of influx of karma. So it's inhibition. So for example, the analogy is given that if you've got a house, there's a storm coming in, you would then want to close the windows, you want to close the doors. So that act of closing, so that no extra dirt can come in is samvar. So that is kind of the analogy given. See, it's the antithesis of ashram, the exact opposite. One of the main things, if rag and dvesh is inhibited, that's a stoppage of conflicts. That's a real simplified, because most of the things which attract karma, it's rag and dvesh. It's actually the glue, which is the root cause of all the influx of karma. So we saw last week what were the 5 causes of ashrav, which is the influx of karma. And for samvar, there'll be the exact opposite. So for example, the ashrav was mithyatva, which was false belief. So the samvar would be samyaktva, the exact opposite of mithyatva, which means enlightened worldview, to see things as they are and not to be deluded. So that's samyaktva, so having the right belief. The second one was arati, which means the lack of abstinence, not taking vows. So the opposite of, for samvar, the opposite would be virati, abstinence. I mentioned last week that the human birth is very privileged, that we are endowed with this ability to abstain out of our own free will. Souls in Devlok or the hellish regions, they cannot out of their own wish saying, okay, today I want to refrain from something, I want to do a pause today. So yeah, please feel free to ask any questions, or putting a hand in between. So that's actually the real benefit of a human birth, that out of our own choice, we are able to then say, yes, I can consume certain things, but out of my free will, I want to abstain from food, from clothes, and so many other things. The third one is pramad. So the pramad was one of the causes for ashrav, the influx of karma. So the exact opposite is apramad, which means spiritual vigilance and absence of remissness. So it's essentially being lazy, so as to speak. So you're not, and so people are spiritually active. You have got the incentive to do spiritual activities. So that's another cause for samvar. The kashai is another thing. So the kashai is krodh, man, maya, lobh. So that was the reason for one of the influx of karmas. And akashai is the absence of passions, and which we very much see within our sadhus and sadhvis. So as you can see that if we compare our monks and nuns, they really fall, and we can see that why we bow down to them and why we revere them. They've got the enlightened worldview. They do a lot of studies. So even if there are any false notions or false beliefs, they will try to rectify them through the study of agams. They do a lot of abstinence. They do a lot of taps. Their entire life is dedicated to just abstinence. They're really refraining for so many comforts, food, luxuries. They are at all times very vigilant. And they're always saying that whatever activities they're doing, is it conducive for their spiritual welfare? No matter what they're doing. So they'll not be doing any idle talk. Chala gappa maira, let's do some gossiping. Every single moment of them is just for spiritual progress. They are very careful in terms of their passions. They follow brahmacharya and also so many other vows. They want to. You hardly ever see monks and nuns getting angry. Greed. So even if they have, it's to a much lesser extent than what we would see in our normal selves. And a yoga, absence of activity. Now, obviously, absence of activity, you cannot be totally, it's not that question, you're not just doing anything. You're always doing some activity, but it's a question of doing activity with vigilance. So any activity is just not like, yeah, let's just do things with the whim of our mind. Every activity would be well thought of, and then they'll do it. So therefore, the kriya becomes very meaningful. It's not purposeless kriya. So those are the kind of the 5 types of reasons which would be the cause for samvar. Now the Tattvartha Sutra goes into a little bit more details, and they would have actually they've expand this into a little bit more. So the guarding the activities of mind, body, and speech. So those are the 3 types of ways you can do samvar. So you're really controlling all the activities of mind, body, and speech. Panch Samiti, Iriya Samiti, Bhasa Samiti. So how you walk, how you talk, how you consume things. So these are all carefulness. How they're going to be doing. So that's part of their, like monks and nuns, they do the parts, they adhere to the 5 samitis. They follow righteousness or morality. So dharma, so as to speak. They spend a lot of time doing self-contemplation, anupreksha. And this is really the key for spiritual progress, because even if if there's any vices within them, they'll be thinking and they'll try to be improving themselves, that how can I improve whatever shortcomings they may have. Parishay, enduring hardships. This is also our monks and nuns do it to a great extent, but this is also something which we can follow, that, insect bites. You go somewhere and it's not very comfortable, so lack of comfort. And if you train, and we all need to strive to, how can we train ourselves to endure hardships? And it's a training ground. And this also helps us, like many people do, oh, I can't do any upwas. Fair enough. Then start with the Vyasana. If you can't do a Vyasana, then do a Porsi. So yeah, you can do Ekasana, Vyasana, and then you can just carry on, and then Ambel, and then you can just climb up the ladder. Enlightened conduct, Charitra. So conduct should be again very pure. They spend a lot of austerity, tap, and yoga. So that's how the Tattvartha Sutra describes how we can do samvar. Now we look at the next one, Nirjara. So this is the other division of the 9 tattvas. Now Nirjara has actually, in a way, got a dual meaning. It means destruction or the shedding of karma, and it's an act of purgation. Or if you look at it from another point of view, is purification or cleansing of the soul. Essentially, they mean means one and the same thing. So, for example, when people talk of ahimsa, ahimsa means non-violence. But if you want to have actually a positive twist to it, you can actually say being kind to others, being good to others. So it's again ahimsa, but there are two facets of ahimsa. One has got a negative notion that yes, you do not want to be negative, do not kill anyone, do not harm anyone. And the opposite, same facet of ahimsa would be to be good to others, to be kind to others. So in the same way, Nirjara has got both ways. One is a shedding of karma, and the other one is going to be the purification, the cleansing of the soul by removing karma, already bound. This Nirjara is a partial form of moksha. Can you imagine? Yeah, moksha. What is moksha? Sitchila, where our gods are, Bhagavan Mahavir is. When you look at moksha, that is total eradication of all karmas. That means there are no karmas at all there. So when you say that we are now reducing our karmas, it's a form of saying that's a stepping stone towards moksha. So it's almost like a partial moksha. And if we keep on doing that until the moment that we remove all our karmic bondage, then that would be moksha for us. So it's almost like giving an analogy of the debt. People say that the UK has got a lot of debt. Debt is debt. You can say that right now the debt could be in trillions of pounds, but then eventually you would come to a situation where the debt becomes very little, and then eventually you can say that you've come to no debt at all. So samvar plus nijara leads to moksha. This is very simplified, and common sense says that's the same thing. Karma is attached to our soul. The first step is to reduce the influx of karmas in our soul. So, it's like the analogy of the boat. If the boat has got holes in it, first thing is plug the holes. Let not any extra water come in. Otherwise, the boat is going to sink. So first you plug the holes, which is the samvar, and then whatever water is inside the boat, let's get rid of that water. That's nijara. So whatever karmas have been bound to the soul, already bound, then let's just get out all these karmas. And when both of these happen, then we attain moksha. And so therefore you can then say, and then nirjara can be classified as two forms, bahya and antar, internal. And this is again another classification of tap. When people say, oh, tap karuchu, then tap has got 12 different forms of tap. Fasting is just one type. And this is a very common misconception even during Pajution. Many people say, okay, oh, ajita upwas che. Very good. It's very good to do that. But many people then say, you know what, I can't even do upwas, let alone even doing ekasna, beasna. But doesn't matter. If you can't do any fasting, then our Jain religion has given us 12 different forms of how we can practice tap and practice nijara. So one is fasting, one is unodari. Unodari means semi-fasting. If you say, I'm going to be eating 8 rotlis or 6 rotlis, today I'm going to eat 4 rotlis or 2 rotlis. So you're going to say, you're going to curtail your consumption. So that's again a form of tap. Vritti Sankshap, conditional curtailment. So you can actually say that, you're going to take some vows that this is what I'm doing. I'm only going to be eating five items today. I'm not going to be eating 7 items, which I usually do. Or I'm only going to eat 3 items. So you're doing some conditional. I'm only going to be doing such thing. That's again training your mind, and it's a form of tap. Ras parityag, abstinence from delicacies. People really like sweet stuff, and that's the reason why when we do ambel, it's a bland food. So that's again a form of tap. And it's amazing because essentially one of the key things about our diet is the taste which we like. So if there's no salt, we don't like the food, and therefore doing ras parityag is again another form of tap. Kaya clash, austere lifestyle. This does not mean torture, but it means how can you train yourself to meet with difficulties. I mean, you might almost think that when people go to the gym, people actually, it's quite tough. People saying, do this many 10 items of this, 20, and if you're sweating, it's painful. But then it's for the betterment of your body. So it's almost, you can think of this as like a spiritual gym, kaya clash, that you go out of your comfort zone and saying, can I bear with this? And slowly and gradually, one then becomes, you can increase the intensity of that. Pratisanlita, seclusion, withdrawal of the sense organs from external objects. Our mind really gets distracted. You look at social media or so many other things that you are trying to say, and then you're trying to withdraw that whatever is non-spiritual activities, how can I curtail myself from that? And then look at internal, antartap, atonement, prayaschit, jepan bhul keri hue, to feel sorry, to feel remorse, vinay, reverence or humility towards the elders, to the teachers, to the gurus, to the superiors, to everyone, even to other life forms. Service, rendering voluntary services to others, so to monks and nuns, to the needy, to the poor. Swadhyay, spiritual studies. Dhyan essentially is quite important. Dhyan means concentration of the mind on any particular activity. So even if you are doing concentration on, say, social media and looking at other things, that is dhyan, but the dhyan is towards other things. We do dhyan all the time. When you go to work, when kids go to the school, you need to have that focus. It is dhyan. But now the dhyan means, how can I concentrate my mind on spiritual activities. So that's a form of dhyan, concentrated meditation. And that's why it's quite important, because many people say when you do meditation, the mind keeps on wandering, goes here and there. And therefore people say, okay, so let's do the Naukar Mari. How can I just focus my mind on one thing? Recite Doka Mantra, recite some prayers, recite some mantras. It's all a way of saying, how can I train my mind and to have some focused concentration. Vutsak, abandonment, you abandon things, giving up external objects such as food, drink, and also internal passions, Kaiotsak. So these are kind of the 12 forms of nirjara or tap, which leads to nirjara. So if you do tap, it leads to nirjara. Any questions so far, or carry on? If there's anything, please feel free to raise your hands. So another way of nirjara is when one can say there are two forms of nirjara, sakam nirjara and akam nirjara. So to get rid of the karmas can be done in two ways. Sakams means spiritually motivated. So for example, penance undertaken for spiritual purification, aja pos keru, aja ambel keru. So this is, you are willfully doing some activities to eradicate your karmas. And akam nirjara, so for example, this means penance undertaken for material gains. So you're still doing, so you could still be doing upwas. Oh, Parmane, you want some material gains. Oh, I wish I can get more money. I wish I can do these things. The fact that you are doing some penance obviously is going to give you some benefits, but essentially it's by sort of it's not in the right manner, or by force or by compulsion. Someone says, "આ કરવાનું જ છે, તમને મન નથી થાતું કરવાનું." So you might need shed some karmas, but not as much as sakam, because it's under duress, under force, under motive, under by કોઈ જબરજસ્તીથી કરે છે. So that's one way of doing it. So both you could be shedding, but obviously sakam is much more beneficial. Now let's look at papa and punya. So very simplistically, punya means auspicious activities. You get punya from auspicious activities. And again, when you are free from sinful acts. And inauspicious activities becomes sinful. So papa and punya. Now, is dharma and punya the same? કે હું આજે ધર્મ કરું છું કે જે પુણ્ય. Now, dharma is an auspicious activity of the soul. આપણે આત્માનું જે છે, આજે આત્મા, you want to purify the soul. So it is categorized under the nirjara tattva. And it's a transformation of the jiv tattva. It's very important, because if you look at the now tattvas, the two main classification is jiv and ajiv. Everything else comes under these two categories of jiv and ajiv. So then one has to then say, okay, now which is jiv and which activities come under ajiv? And jiv means consciousness and ajiv means non-consciousness. And one aspect of ajiv is matter, putgal. So dharma is an activity of the soul. And therefore, dharma, it's like a transformation of the jiv tattva. Tame dharma karo cho, your soul is shedding the karmas, and it's a transformation of your soul. Your soul is being purified by doing dharma. So therefore, it's coming under the jiv tattva. So any spiritual activity done for the purification of the soul is dharma. Now, punya is an auspicious karma, which is a putgal. So karma, as we'll see later, is actually particles of matter. It's a particles of matter which bind to the soul. So there is a distinction there. That's why we say sharir ne atma juda che. Yeah, sorry. Sorry, was there a question? No, okay. So we often say sharir ne atma juda che, which is true, because atma is consciousness and this body is again matter. In the similar way, karma is again particles of matter, not the same matter as what our body is made of. You can't, you have in chemistry, you've got organic table, but it's a form of matter, slightly different from what we call putgal, but it is matter. It's not consciousness. It's particles of matter which bind to the soul. So therefore, punya and pap are both particles of matter which bind to the soul as a result of the activities of the soul. I got angry. So and that's why anger has been a transformation of the soul. Because of some covering of layers, some uday thei gyo karma, and I became angry. And because of that anger, I'm now going to be attracting more karmas in. So it's a byproduct of a spiritual activity, punya. And same with pap. It's a byproduct of a wrong activity, a non-spiritual activity. So the main distinction here is, in summary, dharma is jiv, it's consciousness, it's because of, and punya is because of the particles of karma, punya or pap, and therefore it becomes a jiv tattva. So that's the real distinction factor. One is jiv and the other one is a jiv. So punya and pap, now they're both forms of, I shouldn't say pudgal, but it's a matter. It's matter. It's opposite to the nature of the soul. Both cause the bondage of soul, and acharyas have compared both punya and pap as gold or iron shekels. It's quite amazing that, apanatena, whatever benefit you're getting, we've got a good car, we've got a, good family, everything is a punya, which is good because, and therefore, but essentially what is very important to realize that for any spiritual activity, we eventually have to get rid of punya and pap both. So one is like an iron, if one is in prison, it's an iron shekels, but even punya is like golden shekels. It is still a shekel. And eventually, when you go to moksha, we have to get rid of both punya and pap. However, from a practical point of view, punya is essential. Because if we didn't have punya, if we didn't have good health, if we didn't have good family, if we didn't have food to eat, then we'll not be able to practice any spiritual activity. So it's important to recognize that punya is essential, but it is essential not just to flitter away and saying, oh yeah, many of the youngsters nowadays, oh yes, I want to become a millionaire, I want to become a billionaire, and then what? Become more materialistic and all this. You have to have the right notion in mind that yes, you want to have all these things, but for some of these things are essential. We need a comfortable lifestyle, but then one can set some limits and then spend most of the time for spiritual activities. So punya is essential, but eventually it is important to realize that at one point when we want to go to moksha, both of them have to be shared. It's however important to say, beware, do not long for punya, otherwise you will bind pap. And આપણા વંદિતો સૂત્રમાં પણ આવે છે, ઇયલોએ પરલોએ જીવીએ મરણે આસન સપોગે પંચવિહી અયારો ના મજ્જા હુજ મરણંતે. At the time of death, do not wish that, oh yes, may I get the pleasures of this life or the next life. Ialoye parloye, a lokma ke parlokma. Ke bas, let my life be so long that I can enjoy the pleasures of the heavens. Do not long for that. Apne sara karma karsu, then being born into the devlok is a byproduct. And if you are born in the devlok, we also wish that we are samyak. We've got the right knowledge, even in that form, that, or even if you're born as in the hellish regions, if we have that right, like for example, Athena Shrenik Maharaj, who is going to become the next Tithankar, his soul is in hell right now. But when you are in hell and suffering, you still want to have, at least hopefully, that the soul should realize, okay, I am here because of my karmas and not blaming others. Because otherwise, if you're in hell, it's so easy to blame others and pointing fingers to others. So you then want to bear whatever karma is because of yourself. So therefore, it's kind of saying that do not long for punya. You do good activities, punya is going to be a byproduct. But it's not the question of that, oh yes, I really want to bind punya and willfully saying, because you have got that kind of enticement, ki yes, mane bada swargna mada sukh bhogwa che, then that actually leads to pap. Because imagine you are just born in the devlok and all your time is just being spent enjoying all the pleasures of devlok, then that's not conducive for your spiritual welfare. Yep. There's a question, Hasubai.
Yeah, sorry. What I wanted to ask was in devlok, you can't have any more punya, right? You can't sort of you can't get any more punya than you have already, right? Is that correct or not? Am I missing something?
That I'm not too sure of, because how the dynamics work, because karma would be bound in every state until we are until we have not attained liberation. The the concept of binding karmas, as my understanding is always going to be there. So, for example, if you're in Devlok, and in Devlok ma, aje apde when we pray to the Dev and Devi and they help us, I presume that they must be binding some good karma. They're helping others, and there could be some Dev who might create more hardships. So, for example, Uvasagram Stotra jare Rachanutu. So the Bhadrabhavana brother Jata, he, because of the austerities he did, he was born in the Devlok, but he had a total grudge against Jainism, कि हमारा brother Nisabe, and therefore even being born in the Devlok, he was causing all these hardships because of the power. He had the power to create the hardships there. So even when you're being in the Devlok, you could be doing good activities or you could be doing bad activities because you've got all the power. So to answer your question is, I'm not too sure. I'm not an authority on this, but my impression is that you would still be able to bind punya or pap, depending, and it's also depending on the state of the mind. Like if the devs have that mind, what is the bhav? Am I trying to be helpful or that? So because you can't say that once when they're in that state, it's just all nijara. There might be also be binding some punya. That's my understanding.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to ask was, some of the devs, they come and go to Narak to annoy, or I don't know, the first 3 levels of Narak. They go and do some bad things. I don't know what. Is that correct as well?
Yeah, they're look, Apraje Jain University, we end the Madhyalok, then there's Urdhvalok, and there's the Urdhvalok, Madhyalok, and I forget the name of the one, the hellish regions at the bottom. So, and they, just between the Madhyalok and the hellish regions, there's a certain region where Bhavantar Devs, Vyantar Devs, those are Devs, which then go and they can start harassing other souls. So Jains do believe in those kind of concepts. We do not have this concept of ghosts, but some people can call them as ghosts, that they come and they can start harassing other souls.
So they would be actually building up bad karmas, right? So,
that's right.
Yeah.
And also then there are also different categories of devs. Like we believe that there are different levels of heavens. Just there are 7 categories of hells. In the same way, there are also different categories of heavens. So as you go higher and higher up, you're more spiritually elevated as you go into the 10th devlok, 11th devlok, compared to the ones in the first and the second one. So yes, the power and everything else keeps on increasing as you go up. So if you're in the lower dev, then those are the devs who would be doing it, but not those devs in the higher regions.
But what I don't understand is, if you got to the higher levels, and you say they have got total enjoyment in that, but then if you're enjoying your life too much, you also build up more karmas, right? If you go in the higher, go on. Sorry.
So there are certain what you would call like universal truths. So, for example, if you're born in hell, as per my understanding is, you cannot be born again in hell. Or if you're born in Devlok, again, you just cannot be born in Devlok again. So the fact is that in hell, if you're binding more pap, you will still be born either as an animal or as a plant or come as a human. You will actually get a chance to come out, and then if you're bound so much more, you can again go back to the same place. So the question is that if you're in Devlok or whether in hellish regions, no matter whether you bind more punya or you bind more pap, there's going to be a cycle for them. You're coming out of that place, going somewhere else, either enjoying the fruits of whatever the good or the bad you've done. And if you've done more bad, then again you'll go into the lower regions. And in the lower region, after you've tamar ayushya puru thai gyu, then again you will be born in any of the other gatis. So that's answer your question, because if you are in hell and if you're just binding more and more hell, more and more karmas, then there's never going to be a chance of liberation, because you're just going to be in hell and hell all the time. And if in the heavens, if you just keep on doing more punya, then there's just no chance of you coming out of Devlok. You'll just be remaining there for all time, for eternal time. And Jains don't believe in that. Ayushya Puruthai, but you will be born somewhere else.
Thank you.
Okay. So if you look at the punya, what are the classifications of punya? So punya, if you can look at the general theme, is punya is offering of food. Obviously, according to the scriptures, thanam is to the ascetics. But I think we as a lay people can classify this into a bit more broader categories, that when you're offering food to the poor, to the hungry, that's also an act of punya. So for anyone who is needy, we give them. offering water to the ascetics or to people who require them, offering a place. આપણા સાધુ સ્વાધી માટે આપણે એ લોકો વિહાર કરતા હોય. So that's again a form of punya. Punya is offering of bed to ascetics. એટલે કોઈ આવ્યા હોય ને એ લોકોને many of the austere sadhus, they don't use the actual beds. They just પાથરવાની જગ્યા જ રાખે. But if there is a mat or anything, you give it to them. Any clothes jota hoy to. And also the auspicious activity of mind, body, and speech, and obeisance to the ascetics. So as you can see, that it's become quite important that India, that's the reason why many Shravak and Shravikas, a lot of the spiritual activities is revolved around sadhus, sadhvis, pilgrimage, because this is how we are actually binding more punya. Now, pap is the inauspicious karma pudgal incurred by the soul engaged in its auspicious activity. So the karma, the rise of which makes one indulge in the action of violence, is called pranatipat sthanak. આપણે આવે ને 7 લાખમાં પહેલે pranatipat, બીજે mrushavad, which literally means the place or the act of indulging in violence. The actual activity of killing through mind, body, or speech is called pranatipat ashrav. So the inauspicious karma thus bound our path. So if you're getting that feeling of doing violence, then it's because of the soul. Soul ma eva tamne bhav avi gaya છે. And then the actual karma which you are attracting, that's actually becomes the particles, the papna particles which come in. So pap sthanak, the karma, the rise of which makes one indulge in the activity of any pap, is the pap sthanak. Ashrav is the actual activity of indulging in any pap. So when you're doing in that pap, ashrav means influx of karma. And then the karma bound through the ashrav, they are the inauspicious type of 7 or 8 types of karmas which we bind. So generally speaking, આપણે પાપ કેવી રીતના કરી શકીએ? આપણામાં આવે ને 7 લાખમાં 18 પાપ સ્થાનકમાં આવી. So these are generally the 18 ways of how we can bind pap. And the first 5 are like the kind of the form of the Mahavrats: killing, lying, vishavad, adattadan, stealing. So stealing is taking which is not yours. And this becomes very subtle. I mean, I once read that sadhus and sadhvis, if they are passing by and if there is a flower in someone's garden, they will not actually even take this. They'll try to go away because they don't want to smell, because it's not their garden. So it can become as subtle as possible. The stealing, Maithun, parigraha, so possessiveness, that again leads to anger, krodh, man, maya, lobh, all the 4 kashais, rag and dvesh, quarrel, kalha, spending a lot of time quarreling all the time, backbiting, slander, maligning, parparivad, that's being malicious, very malicious, being very malicious, indulgence in sensuality, rati and arati. Rati, another easy way of understanding rati and arati means is having the tendency to do in non-spiritual activities, and arati means not having the interest in doing spiritual activities. Can you see rati and arati? Okay, you just feel like doing non-spiritual activities, or you don't feel like doing any spiritual activities. So rati and arati. Mayam rishavad and mithyatva shalya, perversity, wrong. And these are actually called mithyatva shalya. It's called thorns. So these are all like thorns which you engage in any of these activities, it's like you getting thorns on your bodies. That's how we are attracting pap to our soul. કે આ બધા 18 પાપમાં છે. So that's why એટલે આમાં આવ્યું છે 7 લાખમાં 7 લાખ પૃથ્વીકાય, 7 લાખ અપકાય, and we can do pap. Who do we do the pap towards? The Sadjivan Kaya. So આપણે પાપ કોની સાથે કરી શકીએ? And Jains say that we can do this pap towards the 84 lakhs of yonis. 7 lakh Prithvikai, 1 sense beings. So if you can see Prithvikai, Apkai, water. So Jains believe all these categories have got soul. Earth has got soul. Apkai, water has got soul. Teukai means fire, fire has got soul. Vaukai means air has got soul. Pratyek Vanaspatikai, which means one plant with one soul. So one body and one soul in a plant. Pratyek Vanaspatikai. And so that's Sadharana, single body for infinite living beings. So there's one plant body, but it has got many souls within that. Beindriya, 2 sense beings, 3 sense beings, 4 sense beings, Devlok, Narki, Tiryancha Panchendriya. So these are the animals and Manushya. So all this, so we can be doing pap towards all these different kinds of life forms. Quite often during Pratikaman, it's explained that Jains believe in 8.4 million species of life. It's not actually species, because if you look at the science, science can say there are this many species. Yoni means places conducive for birth. So these are 8.4 million places conducive for the birth of Prithvikai, Apkai, Teukai, because Jains believe that not only are we born here, but there could be other universes which we can be born in. Airavat, Mahavidya, Kshetra, the different regions, and you come up with this 84 lakh through some kind of multiplication. So it's like there are 5 types of color. Jains believe in 2 types of smell. And if you add up all these things, that becomes 2000. And then Prithvikai, there's some 350 division. I'm not exactly sure how this division has come along, but when you have this 350 division multiplied by 2000, you get 7 lakh Prithvikai, then 7 lakh Apkai. So this is based on these divisions here and multiplied by this 2000, factor of 2000. Because you could be born in different regions and you could be either sort of having different colors in that area. You could be born in a very pleasant or unpleasant place. So all these things are effects of karma: the color, the smell, the touch, the taste, and the shape. So and when you multiply all these things with this, then that gives you yonis, which means places conducive for birth. So there's 7 lakh. So there's 700,000 places conducive for Prithvikai, and similarly to water, fire, and air. So one question is, how can we injure living beings? ને આપણા સૂત્રમાં જ આવે છે, આપણે ઓલો આવે કે છે ઈચ્છાકાન સંધિસ્પકન ઈર્યાવ્યમ પડિક્કમામી, ઈ જે સૂત્ર આપણે આવે છે એમાં આવે છે કે આટલા બધા લાઈફ ફોર્મ્સ છે, પછી શું આવે છે અભિયા, I kicked some souls, કોઈ આપણે ઇન્સેક્ટ્સ હોય, કોઈ એનિમલ્સ હોય. વત્તિયા, being covered by dust, એટલે કંઈ જાતો હોય તો આપણે આખું ડસ્ટથી કવર કરી નાખવું. And sometimes this is mostly the karmas are willfully. આપણે ઘણીવાર કરતા હોય કે if it's inadvertent, then the effects of karmas are going to be very minimal, because our intention is not to harm or kill. So that would be very, very minimal. But if it's intentional and it's very, yes, I really want to do this, then that's where the main karmas will be bound. You want to kick some animals. Lesia, being trampled with the ground. Sangaya, colliding with one another. I mean, there's so many Spanish bullfighting karta hoy che. Animals lane, they just want to collide with one another. So that's kind of a willful sport. Being touched a little. Sangaya, Paryavya, being troubled, to distress the animals. And Udavya, to frighten them. Ganivar, and sometimes we do this sort of purposeless. Pala kabutar hoy, ne gana chokra hoy, and bivdavta hoy, just go and scare them for no reason. Or you're scaring the animals. Just because we are a little bit more superior than the animals doesn't mean that we just want to harass them. So these are all these different ways of how we can injure or harm living beings. And that's why we are asking, we are kind of seeking for forgiveness. If you have done this, we're seeking for forgiveness. Tasamichami dukram last ma. Jivyo vavrya tasamichami dukram. Bandh. Bandh means bondage. Now, bondage means bondage of the karma. So the occupation of the same space units by karma and jiv. What that means is that karma je che, apro atma je che, the atma is enveloped within our body. And therefore, the karmas are enveloping. So the karma is not outside this body here. So here ho to kind effect thata nahi. But because it's being bound by the soul, then that karma will give you the fruits whenever the time is right. So jiv and karma become intermixed. So the technical word is pradesh bandh. And what does pradesh very loosely means? Pradesh means space units. So right now, my soul is occupying this space units over here. And if I'm binding some karmas, then the karmas will come and attach to the soul and occupy the same space units. Pradesh bandh. So the question is that we have been bound with karma since beginningless time. So apni sathe karma to chej. There was never a time whereby we can say we were karma free. So, but the goal is to become karma free. So that is the whole purpose of spirituality. But the question is that we do not believe in so I was created, God created me. God created the soul. God has not created the soul. The soul has always been existing, and the soul has always been having karma attached to it. Now, to consider this, like imagine how do you see karma ne band ki na થાય છે? So right now you can see a yellow, a white circle here. Now you can see red circle. In the same space, you can see this red has just gone over the white. So you can see the space units are one and the same. And if I did again, it's slightly misaligned, but if I then just take this, then green. So can you see eko ek karma, we are not changing the space, it's all just one on top of the other. So if all these circles were aligned exactly on top of the other, you would not be able to see the red or the green, and because now the blue is the one which is the most visible right now. But they're occupying the same space, they're different bodies, the green is different from the blue, but they're occupying the same space. So you can, it's not that difficult to visualize that, yes, it is possible for Jeev and karma to actually be bound together. It's just like becomes like one unit. But they're two different things. They're not the same, one and the same. And you could then actually go here and strip out, oh, let me separate out the blue, let me separate out the green. So that's like, nirjara. You can just take one after the other out. So the bandh is the karmic vargan. Vargan is a technical term, means cluster. આપણે જેમ કે ઇલેક્ટ્રોન છે, ઇલેક્ટ્રોનમાં ન્યુટ્રોન્સ હોય, so there's a cluster. So the cluster is called vargan. So the cluster of karmic particles, it enters into the Atma Pradesh, the space units occupied by the Atma, and then the bondage occurs. So the inflow of karma is due to Ashrav. These are the 5 reasons. So as you can see that Apraja soul je hoy, for whatever activities what it is, it's constantly binding. So you can see this, all this magnet is attracting all these ion filings. So that's how all the judi activities karta jai, they just keep on binding all the time, this the karma, and it's just getting attached to the soul over here. So your karma can create a variety of circumstances outside and moods within, but bondage is created only when you get identified with them. So this is a very important statement given by Rakesh Bhai, saying, "Bare situations kamme te avi sake." There could be whatever situations, but the karmic bondage occurs only when you identify with them. You get involved with them. Yes, I'm very angry with him. But if you are in a samta bhav, in a very equanimous situation, then the karmic effect becomes very, very minimal and almost non-existent at that stage. So the idea is that if you have samta bhav, and that's the reason why it says, આપણે રિલીજમાં કેટલી બધી વાર આવે છે કે in pleasure or pain, trying to maintain that samta bhav. Because right now, if things are going very good with you, you could be very egoistic. Look at me, મારી પાસે કેટલું બધું છે. I've got so much wealth, I've got a great job, I've got all these things. But that creates ego. But if you're equanimous and saying, yes, great, it's my પુણ્યની હિસાબે મને મળ્યું છે, I'm very lucky, then that's in the good stage. And જો પાપ પણ આવ્યું હોય, then again bearing all the things which are going wrong, good health, not a good health, or anything not going well with you, then you can say, Mara karma ni hisabe thyu છે, and not getting too dejected in life. Okay, this one day will also pass. So karma in a dormant state is called sat. So for example, karma is bound to our soul. Then with the laws of the karma, the karmic law, the karma effect can come whenever it comes, whenever the time situation has been bound. So when it's in the dormant stage, it's called sat. So karma has been bound to the soul, but it's not giving reason. So it's just lying sleeping. It's not giving its effects right now. It's latent. But the bindage has already occurred, and one time it will rise. So many people let's look at our own lives. When we were young, or most people, we are all healthy. But suddenly, like if you look at it, ઘણા માણસો કહે છે કાંઈ બધું બરાબર, તબિયત બરાબર હતી, but one day cancer આવી ગયો, ક્યાંથી આવી ગયું? And that's the rise of the Vednya karma coming up. Until now, everything was fine. And then until it's fine, the karma was in a latent state. And then when it's risen, that's when it gives you its effects. So when karma emerges into action, it could be either because of pap or punya. Uday means rise. So it's giving its fruit. It's rising, the karma is rising and giving its fruit. And bandh is in the latent state. It's rising, the karma is rising. Okay,
Rajeev Bhai,
yeah.
Just a question on that one where you drew showed the picture of a baby. So what happens when a baby is born with illnesses, or so are they born with their karmas?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And this, in my view, is one of the easiest ways to explain the karma philosophy to people who don't believe in karma. If people believe in karma is saying, હું જે action કરું છું એના મને fruits મળે છે, and in this life itself, then the question arises that why should a newborn baby, what action has a newborn baby done to have the suffering, any medical problems? And therefore, this is one of the easiest logical ways to think that there has to be something like karma, કે પહેલા કર્યા તો એકલા આ રીતના ભોગવું પડે છે. Otherwise there could be no logical reasoning, and the only way people who are non-believers, then they only can say it's randomness. It's just life is just randomness. But we, they can call it randomness, but for us that randomness means karma. Okay, we just can't. I mean, how can just things be? Why should one person suffer and other not suffer, and especially a baby? So to answer your question is certainly for sure that even a baby, if they are suffering, it has to be that they have committed those karmas in the past lives, and the fruition is coming straight away. That's the time the karmas are fruitioning.
Okay, so then as a baby who has come with these karmas and born with this illness, is in that state, right? Because obviously they are in that state where they can't say be happy or be sad or whatever. They are in that equanimous state, isn't it? That to accept what they have come with.
Right, but again, there's a lot of interplay of different things. So they could be in a very difficult state, and but if the karma, the other kinds of karmas are in their favor, then they could be getting some great medical treatment in Great Ormond Street or other places. If you look at it right now, look at the babies in Gaza right now. It's such an atrocious situation that they are suffering. Maybe the suffering could be the same as a baby over here, but they're not getting any medical help over there. So the interplay of karmas, the intensity of suffering could be so different. Kya baby na lak sara che ke it is suffering, but now that in a intensity of those karmas are becoming less, they're getting the medical treatment or and so forth. So yes, to answer it, the question is that they are not, a baby is not in a situation to say out of their willful ke hun kain karu, but they could have good parents, they could have other facilities which can be helping them to get rid of that karma. Or if the karmas are becoming very bad and intense, it could happen things like what's happening in Gaza and Israel and other places where people are really suffering more.
Okay, so the next question is leading to that, is that when this baby is growing up and not doing anything bad or creating any pap, does that mean that it's also shading in this life, shading its karmas?
So basically, because the karmas are not visible, it's very difficult to say, "Aaj હું karma કરું," and that's again one of the other classic reasons why some people don't believe in karma. કે આખી જિંદગી મેં સારું કર્યું છે, તો why should I be suffering now? Because one person's life has been doing spiritual activities, been doing great things here, and why should they suffer? In fact, just 1 or 2 days ago, I read that one of the sadhu Maharajis got killed in a car accident. So they આખી life જે માણસો કે suppose that sadhu Maharaj had taken diksha at the age of 8 years and throughout the life they did all good things, why should someone be suffering towards the tail end? And so the question is that the interplay of karma can happen at any time. So it's not really easy to say કે હમણાં મેં કર્યું છે તો આનું effect મને હમણાં આવશે. I could be getting it in this life, could be getting it in next life, or could be coming into many other lives coming forward. So which karmas, when you have bound and when they're giving the fruitions, that's next to impossible for us to know. Only a Keval Gnani can know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so I'll just do the last one now, Tattva, and then we can end the talk now. So the last Tattva is the moksha, and this is the aim where we want to do. So moksha is an area, a region at the top of the universe, which we call Sitchila. And that's the area. And this is again to quantify many people when they are reading some translation of our Jain books, and they say, I want to go to heaven. Now, heaven can be a very misleading, like Apra Devlok is also called heavens. The Pelu Devlok, second Devlok, third Devlok. So many English books translate them as heavens. Okay, yes, after death, Padmavati Devi he was born in heaven. But that is Devlok. And for us, the heaven in its literal sense, where it's like all peace, that is Sitchila. So there's a big distinction between us. So it's very, very important to many youngsters or people who just read English books. When you just read heaven, then it doesn't mean, because after Sitchila, you can also say, yes, I want to go to heaven. But that is the real heaven which we are aiming for. And Devlok, obviously, it's important. We would like to go, but out of all the choices. But then the ultimate aim is real, because after Devlok, it's not forever and ever. After Devlok, no Ayusha Puruthai, you'll again be born somewhere else. But what we want is that our soul not to go through this cycle of birth and death and get to Sitchila for all eternity. So Samvar and Nirjara will assist us to get towards that. Samvar means stoppage of karma. Nirjara means getting rid of them. And all the others would are kind of hindrance. Ajiv, Bandh, Punya, Pap, Ashram, influx of karma, they're all kind of hindering towards this aim over here. Now, Gautam Swami asked Lord Mahavir, "Oh Gautam, oh Lord, where do liberated souls terminate? Where do they leave their bodies, the liberated souls?" And he says, "Bhante, I've got this query." And Bhagavan Mahavir says, "Oh Gautam, liberated souls are stopped by the supra universe, Alok." Now, what this means is, we are in the Jain universe, and Lok kevai. And the Sitchila is at the boundary, right at the top, beyond which is Alok. Alok means there is nothing there, pure emptiness. Apra Lokma, within the Jain universe, there is still some matter, there's soul, there could be things within the entire universe. But when you go to Alokma, there's only thing which is space. And it's space for all eternity. So there is not even a single particle of matter, not even soul. In Alokma, there is not a single soul and not a single any particle of matter. So that boundary is where the Sitchila is. And so that's where Bhagavan Mahavir said that's where souls will go. Now the question is, how will my soul get to Sitchila? If I were to bind apna karma pada nikli jai, how do the scriptures describe how will our soul actually go right to the Sitchila? There are a couple of examples given. One is called a pre-liberation force, Purva Prayog. And the example given is, suppose someone is having a slingshot with there's a rock or something and a sling, and you're just turning it round and round and round and round. And once when you let go, what's going to happen? It's just going to go straight, just fly up. So that force is making our soul. So if the tendency of our soul is to go to the Sitchila, to all souls, everyone a soul. If we removed all karmic bondage and removed all bondage, automatically the force is wants to take the Sitchila to take the soul to the Sitchila. The other example given is, suppose you got a block of brick and you with your hand you push it inside water. The moment you remove your hand, what's going to happen to the block of brick? It's automatically going to rise up. So that's called freedom from external besmearing. You remove this hand, remove this karmic bondage. When that's removed, soul will automatically just want to go to the Sitchila. It's an automatic asamgat. So it's a freedom from all. The other example given is freedom from bondage, like a pea. A pea is when it's something pops, all the seeds just fly out. And then again, the other example given is, apne spark kariye, suddenly when you spark, the light just fire just lights up. It's that sparks just instantaneously. So these are kind of the examples given that when this karma gets rid of our body, our soul will automatically just get to Sitchila. So that Sitchila, the shape given depicted is similar is to this. Now someone can ask a question, okay, Sitchila, suppose is a dimension. What are the dimensions out of the Sitchila is? How can infinite souls reside in Sitchila? So the answer to that question is that when you are in there, soul does not have any body. So soul che. So as we saw, ke jam apro soul che, any sathe karma can get attached. And you can get so many karmas attached to in the same space units. So in the Sitchila, there is nothing stopping from, even in a minutest place, you can have 1 soul, 2 souls, 5 souls, million souls, billion souls, even in any whatever space is there. So there is no rule which says, no more souls in the Sitchila. So that's not, because it's like, and another example given is, if you're in a room and then you have got, you light 1 candle and then you light 2 candles. So no matter how many candles you light, the radiance is still going to fill that whole room. It's not saying, oh, there's no space here now. I've lit 100 candles. Now there's no space for the 101st candle to light up. There's no space for the radiance. No matter how many candles you can fit in this room, the radiance will still fit in this room here. So that's one thing, that there are infinite souls in Sitchila right now. Infinite souls will be going to Sitchilas in the future. So and still there's no question of, oh yeah, the capacity is over. So I think on that note, I'll end my talk. I mean, if there's just some quotes on liberation over here. Emancipated souls are identical nature. When we all go into Sitchila, all souls are the same, but they're independent. And this is very important because some people in Hinduism believe that our soul will merge into the Brahma soul. So there is a question of merging, that Brahma is a universal soul. So some Hindus believe in that. Okay, there's one supreme soul, just one soul, and that's in heaven. Bhagwan, and there's one soul, and when we then go into moksha, our soul will merge. And similar to the ocean, there's Indian Ocean, and all the rivers merge into it. So they do not have their separate identity. Once when you merge in the Indian Ocean, then that river has lost its identity. But Jains don't believe in that. Jains believe my soul, your soul, every single soul is independent. And when they go to Sichila, they will have their independent existence. The soul will be there having an independent existence, and it's not merging into any supreme entity. Yeah, I think the next topic is then karma, but I think at this level we can end the talk here. So if there's any questions. Okay, so if there's no questions, then I think we can end the talk here. Jai Junior, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rajeev Bhai. Thank you very much for today's chat and talk. And I'm hoping that everybody has learned something more than they had known. So I'm just going to say that, and we'll close this session.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jai Jinendra.
Thank you very much.